Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Joni Young and I'm an acrylic artist and instructor. I'm going to show you guys step by step how to do this painting today. So if you guys would like to learn how to paint this, I'm going to go over some of the colors that we're using right now. We've got Neon Orange by Holbein. We've got Luminous Rose, Cadmium Yellow, Hookers or Sap Green, and light ultramarine blue, or you can use regular ultramarine blue, mix it with a little bit of white. We're also going to be using a little bit of burnt sienna and some black today. So get ready guys, we're going to start right away. We're going to be using cadmium yellow first just to paint the house. So I'm going to pretty much paint the whole canvas this color. I probably will need a little bit more. I'm going to use this large brush just so that I can get a quick coverage and do this quickly as possible. And it's a number 50, just a big filbert brush, but you can use any blending brush that you want. I'm gonna get my brush just a little bit wet and then dab it off on a towel. Take this beautiful cadmium yellow, and I'm gonna switch over to my right hand. I am ambidextrous, so I can use both hands. I do prefer to use my left hand though, but sometimes just for filming purposes, it's a little bit easier. So I'm just gonna make it a little bit thicker on the top and then work my way down to the bottom here, making it lighter. And then start at the bottom. And working my way up. I'm just going to get a little bit of water on my brush. And this just helps to thin the paint out a little bit and flow out of my brush a lot better. So if you want your paint to be a little bit duller and transparent, translucent, so you can see the gradation difference, it's a lot darker or brighter or thicker, however you want to say it here, and especially up here, and then it's a little bit lighter and faded right in the center here. And I wanted to keep this lighter because this is where the sunlight's going to be hitting, and we're going to be coming over with blue and white for our door. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and dry this off now, and then we'll begin our next layer. Okay, so now that we have it all dry, I'm going to come over and filter over the top lightly with like a really thin coat of my neon orange. This is Luminous Orange by Holbein, and it's heavy bodied. It's a really nice kind of tangerine color orange, and it's going to look really pretty over top of part of this yellow. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm just going to use the same brush, and I don't need very much of this color, so I'm just going to put a little bit directly right on my brush, and I'm going to start come over, back and forth, applying most of that paint on the top again, and then letting that paint work itself out of the brush as I go down, making it radiate to a lighter, softer shade that kind of just disappears off into the yellow. And so now we're going to come in with the windows that we want to add to this, and this is optional. You guys can add as many windows as you want, make them the size that you want, really make it your own, or follow along step by step with me. All right, so you want to make sure that you have a nice flat brush for your windows if you're painting square windows. If you want to do more of like an arch, I'll be doing an arch for my door, then I'm going to be using a Filbert brush because it's got that nice round end that makes it really easy and smooth. I'm going to get my brush just a little bit wet, and I'm going to take a bit of black and a little bit of burnt sienna, blend the two together. And I'm going to start with a window here. Now keep in mind, don't worry too much if your window's not completely straight. We're going to have a lot of flowers and plants around this, so it can help camouflage if you guys are a little bit nervous about that. If you want, you can go ahead and use a ruler, pre-sketch this out, approach it however you want. This is just the way I do it. You guys know I like to do things freehand. So I'm just going to go ahead, just right here, come in with just a simple square. Okay, and then I'm going to take a bit of water on my brush, and I've still got quite a bit of paint in there, and it's dark, so it's really dominant. And I can just go around the edge. And we'll just start from there. I'm going to do a few little lines like this. Make it look like there's some shutters even. And then we can just pull for some little lines in our shutters. Now I know I'm going to be using my light blue violet for an accent color. I know right away that light blue violet is going to look beautiful with this peachy yellowy color. And it's also my go-to color for adding accents and shadows. It's just really pretty. I'm kind of addicted to that color these days. So just a few simple lines like this. And then we'll probably have some flowers planted here in a little window box. And we'll add a little bit more paint. You can see I'm starting to run out now. And just pull across to make like a long rectangle. And this will just be for our little window box. Now you can also come up, and I should be doing this with, the easiest brush would be the Filbert brush. Come back over here. So it would be kind of nice to have one of those half moon windows up here too. And I'll go ahead and paint that in those same colors. Maybe I'll add just a small, maybe just a small one right here. So again, just a little simple square. And I want this one to be darker, so I'm going to use more paint. Okay, and I'm just going to do a frame around the outside. So a line across like this, and then just a little diagonal line on either side. Make that one a little bit wider. This one a little bit wider too. And then join them. And I'll be filling this in with my blue that I like, my light ultramarine blue. So I can even that out a little bit more later on if I want to. Then we'll move on to painting the door now. Okay, so for the door, I'm going to switch over to my Filbert brush. And here I've got a number 9 Filbert. So when you can just use it to get that nice loopy arch shape, nice rounded shape. And I'm going to use a little bit of black, just sort of watered down, and just begin the rough outline first. So something like this, go up and down, just a simple arch-shaped door frame like this. And then we can go across. And maybe make it look like there's some stairs down here. Right, we're gonna have a little bit of a stairway here, nothing too detailed. So we're gonna have some terracotta pots on either side. And I'm just gonna scumble out a little bit down here so it looks a little bit darker and separate from the house. So we can just go all the way across with a little bit of water in my brush, working out some of this burnt sienna and black. And then I won't worry too much about here because I'm gonna have some plants and stuff. So it's not too, and a little bit of my light ultramarine blue too. I'm gonna do like a little strip here of the bottom of the house between the road or the street that separates it and also ties into the rest of the colors and makes this look really complementary. Okay, so I'm gonna continue now. I'm going to do another one of these arches. A little bit more water on my brush. So just like that. And then I'm going to come in with my flat brush so I can get some nice, decent looking lines in here for the pattern around the door frame. So we're going to have some, I'm just going to go around it again. I'm just going to outline this again. And we'll start kind of going in. Our lines are gonna, you want it to go from the middle here. It's gonna sort of look like a piece of pizza, but it's not gonna be pointy on the end. So then we're gonna leave a bit of a space to make this one a little bit wider. And then we wanna try to eyeball this, make it somewhat even. We're going to be coming over with white, so don't worry too much about how it looks at this stage, guys. Remember, when you're in mid-stage, it's always going to look a little bit funny. Things don't look right, but that's when you need to just really, really trust in yourself, keep going, don't give up. Okay, and then we're going to do some long ones like this. We'll have a long rectangle. So we've got sort of smaller ones there, and then we'll go across. Line it up. Take my burnt sienna, and I'm just going to pull across from the inside of the door, one end to the other. I'm going to add a little bit of black right below. And a little bit right above. I'm now going to come in and add a little bit more of my neon orange, just kind of sparingly. And I'm also going to use a little bit more of my burnt sienna. So I just want to have a light little coat of that. Now what brush should I use? Maybe I'll use my other Filbert brush. This one's a number 30. Needs to be tightened. I'm going to make sure my brush is wet. Just damp enough so that I'm going to take a bit of yellow actually with this too. It's a really nice color and a little bit of burnt sienna. So you don't need very much. And then what I'm going to do to make sure I don't have too much paint in my brush is wipe the excess off. I know it seems crazy, like you're wasting paint, but we didn't have very much on there. So now I'm left with a little bit, just enough hopefully, in my brush. And I'm going to turn it over, put my finger on top here. And this will create sort of a dry brush. This is going to look like there's stucco walls. So it's patchy, right? That's the kind of look that we're going for here. So wherever we might have some shadows, I'm going to leave some spaces. I know my tree is going to come in here and there's going to be a shadow casting on the wall around that tree. Just going to grab a little bit of my orange and just sweep down here, just a little bit like that. And wondering if I should add, yeah, maybe a little bit more in here. A little bit more up top with just a bit of that burnt sienna in my brush. Okay, so I want to come in with my door and the trim now for the windows. So I'm going to be using my absolute favorite color, my light ultramarine blue. And for the door, I'm also going to be doing a little bit of a purple base first, and then I'm going to add some of this on top. I'm going to take some white. I use so much white. We go through white a lot, don't we? So I've just got this big tub. This was a really good deal at Michael's. I think it was like under $30. So I'm just going to take a scoop of that out to work with here. And I first want to do a thin layer of white so that we get rid of most of this yellow. But the yellow parts of this yellow I'll leave because it's going to make for some interesting colors and possible mid-tones. So this is a little bit wet still. And then I'll dry this off. And I'm also going to come over here and do another just thin coat here. Very transparent. Important to have this thin layer of white right now for our blue to show up nicely later. You get some nice light tones going on. So I'm going to dry this off. Actually, just add a little bit more white in here. Still seeing that yellow is really dominant right now. So, okay, I'm going to dry this off. Okay, it's nice and dry. I'm also going to come around and add my white right over top. And those lines will show through. So this is going to come, or you can do them singularly if you want. Depends on how much of a line that you want to have in between your stonework or tile work. I'm not really sure if it's tile or stone. then we're going to cut it across. So we're going to bring this white stone frame right down to here. So however you guys want to apply your white, it won't change it too much. Make this side a little bit wider. And then just start to layer over. To make these nice and bright. And now we can come in with our purple. I'm not even going to wash my brush off. See that beautiful violet? And I'm going to come right around. It's picking up a little bit of that white, and it looks really pretty. And we'll just continue along, filling this in with our first base coat of purple. And then we'll start adding a little bit of our blue. And then I'm going to add even a little bit for another shadow color inside the windows. Just a little bit like this before we come in with our blue. And just scumble some out down here on the bottom. Just because it's pretty. It's another pretty color to add that's complementary, right? We know that purple is complementary to orange and yellow. And add a little bit of white again here. I still got a little bit of purple in my brush, and it doesn't even matter. It all looks nice together. Just another light pastel tone of purpley, just tinting our white a little bit like that. All right, so now we're going to move on to the trim around the windows. And I should be switching over to a flat brush, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Back over to my white. And I'm going to go ahead and do some trim here around the window. I'm going to go inside the window, right? Because I don't have enough room here. I'll be going over top of that square window right below. Just up and over. And then maybe we'll add just a little bit of white inside of here too for now. Look at all those pretty colors you get. The white over top of that orange is just really pretty. That's what I love about these neon paints. Magical things happen when I'm using them. Unexpected colors appear, and it just makes it that more exciting and satisfying to paint with. Okay, I'm just coming inside, following along. Just doing a white outline, and then I'll be adding some blue. Maybe just a little bit of this white. Just a little bit of scumbling, dry brushing. Create a few little areas here. Just glows, it's so pretty. Can't resist. Just a little bit more. Okay, I'm done. All right, so now I'm gonna come and dry this off, and then we'll come in with our blue, our light blue violet. So we're gonna be using this color right here. Okay, so back to my Filbert brush. I've got a little bit of purple there, so you know what, that looks nice. We can mix that in with our blue. Don't want to waste any paint, and you can barely see it. It's just going to make a little bit of a difference there. Okay, so we'll do a line down the middle. Okay guys, so sorry I'm doing a voiceover here and speeding this up, but this was my first attempt at my door, and I thought I liked it at first, but then I end up painting over it, so I didn't want to leave this out, but I thought I would just let you guys know beforehand before you start painting this stage along with me. So you can choose though whatever kind of door that you want. I just decided I didn't like this, and I paint over it a little bit later on. So you'll also see me pretty soon start to add the trim on the bottom of the walls in the house with a light blue violet as well. I'm going to go along the bottom, pull and sweep across. I'm going to just pick up a little bit of white so I can tint this a little bit lighter. And we still have a hint of that purple in there. And I'll come back to that later because I know I'm not quite finished with that yet. I'm going to go ahead and add my blue for the trim here. And I could be using my flat brush for this, but I'm just going to carefully do this with my Filbert. And then I'll come over to this side and apply this beautiful blue for here. That looks so nice with background color. And all around over the top. I'm going to switch over to my flat brush now, and I'm going to pick up some white and go inside here again. And I'm going to just do a thin outline of white on some of the trim. Go to our blue, and we're just going to do a few lines like that, just to give it a little bit more character. Make these just a little bit thicker. A little bit of a shadow. I'm going to use my blue here to go over my trim. And I'm going to take a little bit of, just a little bit of my black with my blue. And I'm going to very thinly, because I think I would like these lines to show up a little bit better. So I'm just going to re-outline these. So it's just a really kind of a light gray color that we've got here. I'm going to add a little window box to this one as well. So I'm going to take my bit of burnt sienna here, bit of black, and just add a little rectangle like this. A little bit of black underneath. And again, I'm not going to worry too much about, I'll go over this one a little bit actually. I was going to try sort of a white, lighter color window box, but I think I prefer the darker brown, black brown. I think it'll be a better base for when we have like our flowers and our vines and leaves coming down. And for the door, I think what I'm going to do is just do like a wood grain kind of a look. And I'm going to use my Wisp Even Tail fan brush, and it's a really neat brush to use. I'll just show you guys this one right here. So I'm using Winsor & Newton Ultramarine Blue. So I'm just going to get this brush wet. This is really, really neat brush to use. And I'm going to pull in to my dark ultramarine blue. And I'm just going to pull and wiggle down. Just to give it sort of that interesting look. A neat wood grain look. And then I'm even going to do the same thing with a bit of white, a little bit of my white and light ultramarine blue. Just going to come across the bottom now with my burnt sienna and just clean this line up right here. Add a little bit more down below. And I'm going to add a line right down the center. Make this 2 doors. We'll add a little dot and push, wiggle, and let off for the handles on the door. And then we can add just a little bit of highlight. Yes, some white, barely touching, just like that. And I'm going to take some of my ultramarine blue. I'm going to go inside part of the window here. With a little bit more color. And maybe just for the fun of it, we'll come inside this one. Add a little bit more blue. This window dried a little bit lighter than I anticipated, so I want to come over and add some blue inside now just to make it darker. And then I'll pick up a little bit of my burnt sienna and my black. And add a little square inside of the square. Now before we begin our flowers and plant pots, I'm going to just add a little bit more of my blue around the side here. Making it look a little bit in shadow because it's set in slightly. Just around the edge like that. Okay, so now we're ready to start our tree and all of our little potted plants around everywhere. That's going to kind of make everything come together nicely now. So for my tree, I'm going to use a round brush. So I've got this round brush here. It's a number 2. I'm going to take some of my burnt sienna, a little bit of black, and a little bit of white. Just kind of all three of those colors like that. I'm going to start down here. This is going to be the base. Making it a little bit wider. And up and over. Get a little bit more water on my brush. So you want to wiggle and sort of twist your brush. That makes it look a little bit more realistic and gives it kind of that interesting twisted look character. So we'll just do some of these thicker ones here. I'm going to have some going up and over this way. And another one, set another one that kind of just goes and meets this one down here. You can even make them look a little twisted if you want to. Just kind of pull, turn over. Lots of squiggly lines, and then add our flowers and our leaves. I'm going to add just a little bit of white now to my burnt sienna. You can even pick up a little bit of that blue. I'm going to turn my brush over like this, barely touching, kind of letting off, just to add a little bit of texture. So we can come in with a liner brush now, but first, while I've got my burnt sienna out here, I'm gonna add some pots. So I'm gonna add one right here. We're gonna do a circle and then make it a little flat on the bottom and then a line on top. We'll just color that in or paint that in. Take a little bit more, and then a little bit of our neon orange to give it that terracotta look. And then maybe we'll have another one here. Let's make this one bigger. So a circle, and then that flat top. I think one more. Maybe we could have something right here. Again with our neon orange. Just applying that neon orange right in the middle here to give it that rounded look, and as this dries we'll be able to come over and highlight a little bit easier, or you can just do it thinly like this and make it look a little patchier. Just pull the rest of that paint out onto those little boxes. I've got a long liner brush that I'm going to use. Just get a mixture of my burnt sienna and black again. More burnt sienna than black. I'll just do a few more lines here. Lines of vines, and these are just growing right against the house, against this wall. So I made that a little bit too thick. I'm just going to come in and take some of that off. There we go. Back into my white, blue, kind of burnt sienna color here. And come inside this tree trunk again. This I'm not going to worry about because I'm going to cover that up with some green and flowers. And now I'm going to come in with one of my oval brushes. I've got an oval brush here, oval mop, it's 1 inch. And I'm going to take some of my sap green, and I'll be using this, applying this in a few different areas. First, oops, I got a drip there. A little bit of black and green to get a nice deep base, maybe a little bit more green in there. Okay, and I'm going to just tap lightly like that, and then turn my brush. So see how tapping across, lift and tap, turning my brush this way. This will make it look like those little vines coming down. Now you can also kind of just pull and flick a little bit if you want. Okay, and we'll do the same thing on the other side. Just a little bit like this. Have it coming up, some greenery coming up a little bit higher. And then we're going to add some down here. And then at the base of the trees as well. Reload my brush and then turn my brush this way. So I have it kind of coming up like that. I'm going to tap around here. And then just a few little dabs and taps here and there. There's not a whole lot of leaves on this tree. So I'm kind of pushing, and you can use a multitude of different brushes for this. But I have this one already, and I know I can, by manipulating it different ways, I can get those suggestions of leaves back here. So again, not too much. And then I'm going to come in with my white, yellow, and a little bit of green. And we're going to add some highlights. So see, I didn't blend too much. So just tapping. A few areas like that. A little bit more of my yellow. Just to highlight this foliage a bit. This is still pretty wet down here, so I might need to be a little bit more generous. You know what would also look really neat is painting a little topiary tree. Those are always kind of fun. So I'm going to do that. Just tap for a little circle like that. Maybe even this one here. We'll give it that sort of a pointy look to it. We'll add some pretty red flowers that are kind of twisting around. And while I'm thinking of it, my liner brush, Maybe we'll just have some vines coming from here and just sort of intertwining with everything, twisting and wrapping around. Just using this little liner brush to pull and flick lightly. And then we need to connect those. I think that topiary look is quite pretty actually. I could do two, but I think I'm just gonna do the one. And then maybe this is coming down here and just starting to go down and over. You can do little taps like this too to make it look like leaves. A little bit of green in here. All right, so now I can start coming in with my neon luminous rose for the flowers. So I've got a few colors I'm going to be using. I've got Scarlet Red and Luminous Rose. I'm going to incorporate some of my bright aqua green turquoise and a little bit of neon yellow. So I've got quite a full palette here. I've got a little mop brush and I'm going to start by taking my Luminous Rose. I'm going to come up and just start layering, tapping right over top of some of these leaves to make it look natural. So wherever you want to have some flowers, put them where you want. So I'm going to come in with a little bit of white and start tapping in. To make it just a little bit softer. See how much it changes the tones of the flowers? We have this one coming right in front, hanging down in front of the window. Then using a little bit of white. I'm going to go back into my green and my black. I'm going to add some leaves that kind of come around and over top. And I'm doing this wet on wet purposely so that I'm picking up a little bit of that pink and then maybe making some shadows. And a little bit in here as well. And you can just make it look like there's some moss hanging a little bit too if you want. We'll go ahead and take some of our neon yellow, mix it with what we've got on our brush already. Start over here, pushing and tapping for some larger looking leaves, and then a little highlight here. And we'll start coming in here. Just giving this one a really interesting, twisted kind of a look. A light little pull and flick wherever you want to have some of that moss hanging. Add some bits of yellow here to make that bright green color for some of our leaves. And you can take just a little bit of white to make some of them a little bit brighter. You need variation of tones and colors for your highlights and shadows. And a little bit of my neon yellow, just really kind of thick, not over blending too much. And maybe just a little something down here on these vines. And come in with my Scarlet red. Add little bits of, maybe they're geraniums here. And we can have a little something down here too. Let's right away pick up some of that blue violet and see how that looks together. Quite a bit here on my brush. Well, I think that looks pretty. And I'm going to do a little highlight here on these pods, just with a little bit of white, orange, burnt sienna, and yellow. A little bit of extra color there, just for fun. Now this isn't bright enough for me, so I'm going to bring in some of my neon red. I'm just going to squeeze it out directly on my brush. There, a nice bright pop of color. And where else could we have some? Something like that. Now I'm going to go across the top and do a layer over of neon pink. Okay, so I've got a large Filbert brush just to get some good coverage, and I'm just going to start going over the top here and there. Layering over part of the flowers. And add a little bit to the pots. Scumble out a little bit of this here. I'm going to come over around the trees. over in some of these areas here and add a little bit of neon yellow over top to get another bit of color going on. It's all about just building up that richness. Layer at a time. This is one of my longer tutorials. Let me know if you guys are enjoying this and like the longer videos. It lets me know what type of content to create for you guys. And I just want to tint my white with a little bit of that light blue violet and add a bit of a shadow right in here. I'm just going to continue to use this brush, scoop up my neon pink, luminous rose, and build up some flowers. And cut into a smaller brush here. Scoop up a little bit of white and neon pink, just little taps. We've got some coming in over this door. Just going back in for some dark green. We'll tap in a few leaves like this, just so that we have it looking natural here. We need to have some leaves in between. And I'll just take a little bit of my ultramarine blue and do a shadow down here around just one side. I'll take some of my ultramarine blue with my luminous rose and tap in to make a beautiful deep bluey purple color here. And we're just about done, guys. Just a few more little hanging vine things, and we'll call this one done. Yeah. More little dabs of flowers in here. Oh, I haven't used my turquoise yet. Okay, I'm not done yet. Let's put a little bit of my turquoise here, and maybe we can use some for a few little leaves in here just to change that tone up a little bit. It's a nice color to add for some shadows. Something down in here. See how all these colors are so fun to use together. This wasn't the plan with the frame on my window, but I think it kind of looks pretty right in there, so I'm going to just add a little bit of that. And just a little bit more light ultramarine blue inside some of these branches, the tree trunk. Now you guys can definitely add more or less than this if you want. You could have some little pots on either side of the door. That would look pretty. But I think I'm going to call this one done. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today. This was so much fun. I hope you learned a lot, got inspired, and I'll see you guys soon in another video. Bye!